Welcome to Akamai TV. My name is Tara Bartley, and I am joined today by Yospace's David Springall. Welcome to the program, David.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. So why don't we start off by setting the stage with you telling us about the early days of online advertising?
Yes, the early days of online video advertising was a bit of a wild west.
Mm-hmm.
The user experience was not particularly good. Buffering wheels as you went from the content to the ads, drops in resolution, drops in quality, differences in audio levels. And this is a user experience that just wasn't acceptable to broadcasters, who have traditionally been very, very focused on the user experience.
Right.
So that need to address the user experience problem gave rise to a technique known as server-side ad insertion, which is where Yospace and other companies are able to stitch in normalized advertising into a live stream or into a VOD stream, such that it perfectly matches the quality of the primary content without any buffering. It's done frame accurately, so it looks like a real TV experience. We announced our product in 2011 in IBC.
Oh wow!
And over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, we've seen a massive swing towards the use of this technique to deliver that broadcast quality experience.
And as a consumer, there are other things in terms of seeing repetitive ads and that sort of thing. You've also addressed that, right? Not just quality?
Yes, I think that what happened, certainly in the early days, there just simply wasn't the demand from advertisers. So there would be some advertisers, but in order to fill a whole ad break or to be able to have enough diversity to actually address, to provide enough interest to a viewer, it was extremely difficult to sort of get to where the broadcast experience was. But I think in the last 5 years, that shift from to online buying has massively improved the availability of advertising. But there are still problems with regard to the ability to address or track users, and the with GDPR in Europe and similar legislation being discussed in the US. That problem is going to be key. Well, addressing that problem in order to ensure that the user doesn't see the same advertising, the same advertisement multiple times, is critical.
And GDPR doesn't apply just to your European customers, because those customers are global oftentimes, right? So everyone around the world has to consider that nowadays.
That's right. Our US customers are taking the exact same best practice with regard to user privacy as their counterparts in Europe. I think it's seen as, for the US, it's like Godzilla at the edge of town. Basically, they're preparing for it, and the server-side ad insertion approach puts a piece of middleware between the user's device, the client, and the ad tech ecosystem.
Right.
And so having that level of security that allows a broadcaster to control how that personal data is shared between that ad tech ecosystem is an absolute key architectural benefit of server-side ad insertion, which initially was about user experience, but now it's just as important with regard to privacy.
Right. So let's talk about programmatic. When you have conversations with your customers, programmatic can be a really tricky topic. People are still coming up to speed with what exactly that means. Give us layman terms, definition, and then go into the complications.
Yeah. So programmatic it can mean a lot of different things to different people, but at its sort of core is the automated trading or buying of advertising. But that can be in a private marketplace controlled by a broadcaster, or it could be a public marketplace. But fundamentally, it is about this automated approach, and also the ability for the third parties that are effectively wanting to place or bid for positioning to be able to do the tracking within the regulatory system of the country. So one of the biggest challenges with programmatic has been that a lot of broadcasters will have first-party sold ads, and then will maybe have a few slots they'll give out to programmatic. But traditionally, it's been very difficult to do the creative separation. That is, if a retail ad is the first ad of a spot, then guaranteeing that the third-party ad at the end isn't also a retail ad from a competitor.
Right.
So that's been very tricky to solve, and also the fact that they want to price optimize. So what we've been doing, working with SSPs like SpotX, is sort of to try and solve that problem, to allow broadcasters to genuinely mix third-party demand with their own first-party demand, price optimized and effectively clash managed or creatively separated.
And really, programmatic is better than what you're seeing watching video on demand in your living room, right? I mean, how many times do you watch a video on demand and you actually see an ad in there that is for the program you're watching?
Yes,
right?
yes.
So online you're getting a better, more targeted experience.
Yes, I mean, relevance is key, and of course relevance not just means potential utility to the viewer, it also means better a return for the broadcaster, which means that you can have fewer ads or shorter ad breaks.
Right.
It's better to have a short ad experience than a whole bunch of irrelevant ads that may last 3 or 4 minutes.
And I have to say, as a consumer, it really works for me.
Yes.
It really does.
It does. Yeah.
So let's talk about low latency. I joke, right? If we had a nickel for every time we said low latency here at NAB, we'd be rich people.
Yes.
But low latency is where we strive to be as a company, but then that poses a challenge on your end.
Yes,
lower the latency.
It potentially does. I mean, luckily we've solved this problem, and we have a white paper with SpotX and Akamai to explain exactly this. So it's called Go Live, so you can download it by Googling Go Live and Yospace. But the problem with low latency is that traditionally, if you're doing live ad insertion, you make the call to the ad server for each individual user at the moment of the ad break. Now, as you reduce the latency, the peak by which those calls are made is compressed. So that really doesn't work very well at scale. So in order to address that, we developed a system called prefetch, which is we speculatively call the ads tech ecosystem for a pod of ads before the ad break occurs, because in live sports you don't know when it's going to happen. You just put it in your back pocket and stitch the ads in at the moment the actual break goes live, and that really has allowed us to, reach unparalleled scale.
You make it sound so simple with the back pocket analogy, but I know it's incredibly complicated what you guys have achieved.
Yes, it has, and to do it at the scale that we've done with Akamai has been and proven, is a particularly great achievement.
So you talk about live events, and we talk about OTT. The challenges of actually making money with OTT, it's a huge challenge for our customers, right? How do you help with the monetization side of things?
Well, in multiple ways. The first is obviously to ensure that the user experience is good enough in order to be able to allow premium advertisers to be confident that their content will look as great as it would if it were in the broadcast context. There's the price optimization that I discussed with you earlier, which is about ensuring that if there is the unfilled inventory for a broadcaster, they can go out to the programmatic ecosystem to get the best price that's brand safe and so on and so forth. And again, the server-side ad insertion middleware gives the broadcasters and the advertisers that confidence. There's also the additional technologies such as viewability. So things that attract a higher price for the advertising is such that the advertiser can independently verify that the content there was an opportunity to view it, that actually the ad was actually on the screen at the time it was playing out. It wasn't muted. And independently verify that the demographic that watched it, or the user that watched it, was fitted in the demographic that it was actually targeted.
Which is key. Well, it's always good to wrap up on monetization.
Indeed.
It looks like we're just about out of time, David. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank all of you for joining us, and please stay tuned for more Akamai TV.